Welcome back to the Data Protection Diaries, welcome back to the vlog. In today's video we're going to be talking about vendor risk management. So how, as an organisation, do you identify the challenges, risks that your vendors potentially are going to bring to the table? What are you going to do about those challenges? And how do you make sure that your vendor risk processes, so your due diligence processes, are as effective as they possibly can be? As always, if you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. This is the Data Protection Diaries. We look at all kinds of things obviously related to data protection. If you're not new to the channel, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Either way, please do make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Click the link in the bottom right hand corner and obviously like this video and comment down below if you find it useful. It's all very helpful to the channel and it just helps us do more of these kind of videos. Today we are talking about vendor risk management. Now this is one of the probably biggest challenges that clients are currently coming to us here to discuss, and there are a number of reasons for that. Of course, first off, when you're onboarding a new supplier, a new vendor, whoever it may be, you want to make sure from an information security perspective that that vendor is safe, they are secure, they're going to look after your information, they're going to protect your infrastructure and protect your assets in the way that you would see fit. Secondary to that, or possibly not even secondary, but in line with that, we obviously have the requirements of the GDPR and data protection law, which also states that you have to make sure that you have appropriate controls in place with processes. So individuals, organizations who are processing personal data on your organization's behalf, you have to have appropriate contracts. You have to make sure that they are running in line with those contracts and those agreements, and that they have appropriate technical and organizational measures in place. So this leads us to the challenge of vendor management. Obviously, in some cases, when you're dealing with huge organizations, Amazon, AWS, Microsoft for your Office 365, you're kind of left with the viewpoint that this is a world-class organization. We're going to have to trust what they do is going to be correct. But where does that leave you when you're looking at smaller organizations, potentially outsourcing your HR, for instance, outsourcing a finance system, bringing in organizations to help with your internal networking and internal network infrastructure and alike? Well, that leaves us with a challenge. How do we make sure that these organizations, A, are who they say they are, but B, are also going to keep our information and our business assets as safe as we're going to want them to? That is essentially where vendor risk management comes into play. Now, currently, what tends to happen, and certainly what we see happening, is that organizations will pull together a due diligence questionnaire. So this questionnaire will be designed to cover off a multitude of things. Might cover off information security, probably covers off a bit of data protection and a bit of privacy. There's probably something in there about financial risk. I don't know, what was your annual turnover? Have you got a company's house number? So are you registered as an actual company? Have you had any breaches? Have you had any incidents? Have you had any CCJs, for instance? And all of this information gets pulled into a single questionnaire, which then gets fired off intermittently to whichever vendor happens to be coming down the line, or whichever supplier we happen to be wanting to work with. Now, the first challenge with that is, of course, no one-size-fits-all questionnaire is ever going to land perfectly with every single supplier that you have. What we tend to see is that then drives organizations to kind of give the answers that they think they should be giving, rather than giving the answers that actually reflect their organization's processes and what that organisation actually does. Can't really blame organisations for doing that, especially when, let's be honest, everybody's just looking to get business, everybody's looking to get on and make money. And of course, people don't want to be put on the back foot by not being able to demonstrate that they have the right technical and security controls in place. The second challenge that we see on a fairly regular basis coming from clients is that when they're sending these questionnaires out, they're just not getting any answers. Nobody is responding, nobody's coming back to them to give them any information, and very often that's because the data that they're using to distribute these questionnaires is old, people have left the organisation, email addresses are no longer active, they're getting bounce backs, and they're then struggling to find out who within the business is now the right person to speak to. Obviously, it's not all doom and gloom. Now, the important thing to remember here is that if you are doing some kind of vendor risk management, you're already on the way to being in a very good place. What you do need to look at is how you can make your vendor risk management as effective as possible while reducing the burden on your organization, reducing the burden on your vendors, but also giving you the right information that you need to make sure that you can make a decision about whether or not you want to work for these or work with these people. So let's take a look at 4 things that you can do today that can improve your vendor risk management processes. So number 1, the first thing that you can do is stop sending out one-size-fits-all questionnaires to absolutely every vendor and every supplier that you have. This is especially important if you're a big organisation that deals with other big organisations, but also deals with small, medium-sized enterprises that don't have all of the infrastructure, that don't have all of the networks, security controls that you think that they might have. Sending a questionnaire for an organisation that is dealing with the most sensitive information in your business, and then sending the same questionnaire to the catering company that are going to come and do your business lunches, defeats the object of what we're trying to achieve. Identifying your suppliers, defining what the risk is associated with that supplier, and then tailoring a questionnaire to that risk is the first place that you want to start. What do we want to protect? What control should you have in place? How much of a risk are you to my business? And then you can have a serious questionnaire for that, one that covers everything. You can have a middle level questionnaire, one that covers maybe information security, bit of privacy risk, but doesn't go into as much detail, doesn't require as much evidence. And then you can have a basic check, a bit like you do with DBS checks. You know, your basic, your enhanced, and your security clearance, as it were. A basic level check for those smaller suppliers who just aren't going to be causing a likely big risk to your business. They're not having access to things that you really want to be worrying about. The second thing you can do is look at the language within your questionnaires. So once you've written these questionnaires, how are you asking those questions? Try and avoid any kind of technical lingo or terminology that's very specific to your organisation. If the questionnaire has been written by somebody that is technically minded, very often they come from an IT perspective or from a compliance perspective. Make sure that somebody without that level of experience can understand the questions and can give you the information that you are looking for. There is no point in having a questionnaire where people just answer the questions because they think they need to answer it in a certain way, but really they didn't understand what they were being asked. Keep it simple, make sure it's understandable, and make sure that anybody can read and answer those questions or can go and find the right person within their organisation to answer those questions, and you'll find you get a much better response from the questionnaires that you're putting out. Tip number 3, make sure that you are being realistic about the timelines that you are putting in place when you are asking people to do due diligence questionnaires. There is nothing worse than sending an organisation a questionnaire and saying, you know, it's Thursday morning, I need this by Friday afternoon, otherwise this contract's not going to go ahead, we're going to pull the plug. All that does is instill panic in the organisation, potentially pushes them to again give you the answers that they think you want to hear rather than going and finding the correct information. Good vendor risk management should be built into your supplier processes from the very, very beginning. So when you're starting to identify potential suppliers, having that conversation, explaining that due diligence is going to need to be done, and even providing the questionnaire ahead of time so that before the contract is even signed, you can get a viewpoint on what this organisation is like, is going to put you in a much better position. And my fourth and final tip is be prepared where physically possible to go and visit your most high-risk suppliers. Anybody can tell you anything they like on a questionnaire. Anybody can tick yes on every box. They can provide you with policies, they can supply you with certificates, they can provide you with a whole wealth of information that makes them look good. What they can't do is fake their physicality, they can't fake their offices, they can't fake their infrastructure, they can't fake their storage if it's a records management company. Be prepared if you have a high risk processor, high risk supplier, that you will need to go and visit these people, go and knock on their door, ask to see where your information is stored, ask to speak to some of the employees. What training have they actually had? What do they actually understand about the service that they are delivering? Where is this service being delivered from? Does it match the address on the contract? Does it match the address on Company's House? Or has somebody just put down, an address in Knightsbridge in London and actually they're working out of their garage in Walthamstow? It's so important that if you want to have effective risk management, you don't just rely on a questionnaire. It does take time, it does take resource, but if you have the ability to do that and you have the time and the resources to do it, then putting effort into going and doing physical visits of your high-risk organisations and high-risk suppliers is absolutely key. As long as you are doing some kind of vendor risk management, be it a basic questionnaire or a complicated questionnaire, at least you are doing something. You are making a step forward. But how you do that and changing the approach that you take can vastly improve the overall compliance of your organisation and can just make your job a lot easier. Now, of course, as always, this is a fairly succinct view on the world. So if you do have any comments, please do drop those down below. If you found this video useful, please do hit like and of course subscribe to the channel, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks very much.